really sucks when you have a personal favorite style of controller, but you can't use it on any device you want because, oh, you have to use the controller designed for our system with it. You have to buy these specific ones. Sometimes you just want to have your favorite controller and use it on all your devices. And there's a couple ways you can kind of work around this that we've talked about before. For instance, there's this little receiver right here from 8BitDo, which lets you use PS4 controllers or Xbox controllers with your Switch. At the same time, Microsoft has also kind of done options before where there's a receiver that lets you use an Xbox One controller with a PC. Well, today we've got something that kind of has the similar idea, but works in the opposite direction that I'm really curious to try out, and it's this guy right here. This is an adapter for an Xbox One controller, which all-in-one will supposedly let you use it on a Switch, a PS4, or your PC, instead of having to have separate dongles for each system. And on top of that, it also adds a couple other features as well. For instance, giving you headset support on PS4, or more interestingly, motion controls on the Switch, which all in one little package. It's also a rechargeable battery, which didn't come with a cable for some reason. That's a little annoying, but it is just micro USB, so that's not a huge deal. They're not too expensive to pick up. So let's try this guy out. So the part I'm really curious about is the motion control. So we're gonna set this guy up with an Xbox One Elite controller and play a little Zelda with it to see how well we can actually aim the bow using motion controls. So the way this guy works is we should just be able to remove the battery cover and slide this guy into place. It's gonna take the place of that cover as well as plugging into the micro USB port on the top of the controller. So let's try that out. It's almost like it's bending that. Okay, that felt a little weird to do and kind of worried me for a second, but it's in and feels like it, yeah, it's pretty secure. Okay, so the next step, something that you do with a lot of different Bluetooth controllers when you have to change settings to work with different systems, is you have to enter a certain kind of mode. And the way it works on this guy is I need to hold this button up here until it blinks. Yep, there it is. And then I hit the, I forget what Xbox calls it, but like the menu button here, the one on the right or the left. I always forget what it's called. And then for Switch, I think I have to hit A, so it just seems like it shuts it off. Okay, all right, I was just holding the button too long, I think. Maybe it's not A. This might just be a bust. We're gonna take a quick commercial break so I can reread the directions to this guy. So, turns out I was doing everything wrong. So, first off, I memorized the wrong button combination. I was entering PS4 when I need to do Switch, which is B instead of A. But also, for the very first time you set this guy up, you actually have to plug it into the Switch temporarily, which is something that I've had to do before with other kind of similar, not Nintendo controller setups for the Switch. So let's go ahead and go through that process right now. It's saying to make sure that in our system settings, we have Switch wired controller support active. Yeah, Pro Controller wired communication on. So that's an important part that a lot of these kind of hacks have to rely on. So that's why I already have that on. Connect it using a USB cable, which once again, it didn't come with, so I had to find another one, scrounge it up. It's not showing up, but it's staying on this time. If cannot be successfully repaired, reboot the Switch and try again. Power cycles fix everything. Making sure I'm reading this right one more time. It just turns out they're like, oh yeah, the latest patch just totally destroyed the way this knockoff adapter would work.
And it also bricks your Switch.
And it also bricks your Switch if you try using it. I think we might just kind of say like, and we're gonna go ahead and stop until I can take like a day to figure this out.
A few inches later.
So, pro tip for you guys out there, whenever you buy a new piece of tech, it is generally a very good idea to make sure you do any firmware updates before you actually try using it. I didn't do a firmware update. So I actually checked, and it turns out that the latest firmware specifically fixes it having problems with Switch 5.0. So it's installed. Now let's go ahead and see if it actually works. So, aha! Yes! And then I unsynced it on accident because I hit the wrong combination of buttons while I was celebrating victory. First step down, we have it working on the Switch. Now, once again, this is something that we've already been able to do before using other accessories, but where this guy is hopefully going to give us a little extra bang for our buck is that we're gonna be able to do actual motion controls with the Xbox One controller. So let's go ahead and start up Zelda. All right, so far, our controller works great. I mean, it feels natural. Nothing feels off yet. So next, let's go ahead and try the motion controls. Yeah, I have motion controls and it feels natural. I mean, it feels like the same way if you're using the Switch Pro controllers. That's awesome, actually, that this is giving me that full functionality with a controller that normally doesn't do that at all. Rechargeable battery pack makes it work on Switch, and it works with motion controls. I might not use a Pro controller again now. So yeah, this guy actually works really well. And now one problem you saw me kind of having with this guy though is the fact that an ongoing kind of weird thing between Nintendo and Xbox controllers is that they both use ABXY, but they're not the same ABXY. A lot of the buttons are flipped. So it gets confusing sometimes if you're using an Xbox controller on a Nintendo system. But what's really cool about this guy is that on top of, being a battery and letting you use this with other systems and stuff, it actually gives you a way to do onboard remapping for what signals it's sending to the Switch. So it's actually really easy to do. You basically just have to hit the options and Xbox button to enter the right kind of mode, and then basically just hit the buttons you want to remap, do a couple combinations, and you're done. It's really easy to do on the fly, and I did it to flip all the buttons. So while the placement is different than it would normally be in Zelda, I have to now kind of think like, normally A is run, the bottom button's normally to run, so now it's this one on the side. But now whenever I get prompts for things like, press A right now, or press B, or X, or Y, I actually hit the correct button on the Xbox controller because it's just reflex when you're using this thing. Another similar feature it boasts as well, which is set up the same kind of way where you just have to do a couple button combinations to set it up properly, is that you can also activate a turbo mode on some buttons so that when you press it once, it reads it as you've pressed it several times very quickly. So I gotta admit, I was super skeptical about this guy, and it wasn't really helping that we had trouble setting it up. But once we figured out the firmware stuff and got this thing attached, which is a little annoying too, it's pretty amazing actually. I mean, there's always gonna be the issue that possibly down the line, any of these systems can be patched to where this doesn't work anymore, and hopefully the firmware just keeps up with it. But for the time being, I think I'm just using an Xbox controller and everything now, or at least on Switch. It's awesome.
Help! Somebody call an exterminator!